Okay.
So next item on the agenda is 6.4 Corporate Services Report SR-045-23 2022 Capital Year End Reporting and Capital Reserve Fund Update. Moved by Counselor Maybe. Sorry, your writing is something. It's something. And seconded by Counselor Fody. The Committee of the Whole recommends that Council approve the carry forward budget amount of $1,909,204 as detailed in the 2022 capital year end schedule. Discussion on the motion. Go ahead, Counselor Maybe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. In the operations department, it talked about the 209 Chevy Silverado, but it did, and the other vehicles that are listed in there said replacement of the fire vehicle. And it said a 2010 Chevy Silverado half-ton budget, 50,000, actual 67. But what, that's not a new vehicle, that's a used vehicle for that price? Or what was the vehicle that was purchased for that price? Yes.
We'll let the treasurer answer that.
Sorry, through your worship, what page are you on?
I believe on the top of 3, the bottom of 2, where it was first listed, in the top of 3, the operations infrastructure department budgeted
Okay.
replacement of 3 trucks purchased. The 4th, we know what happened to that, but it lists the 3 trucks here.
Yeah, they're all brand new trucks.
Okay, just, but a 209 is a new truck?
No, those are the vehicles we replaced. So we replaced citywide asset number 118, number 24, 2012 Ford F-150. We replaced citywide asset number 50, 2009 Chev Silverado. And we purchased new ones, new trucks, which, so this is listing per the budget. Like I listed it the way it was in the budget. So in the budget, it's listing what we're replacing, not the new, but I can give like the new, I'm not sure if they're in here exactly, or I can definitely provide the details for the new ones.
Yeah, I didn't see the new vehicles listed themselves. When I
No.
read through it anywhere. So that's why I was actually questioning it, because we know we replaced them, but what did we replace them with?
Yeah, so they
100%.
would have come to council through the year when Dave purchased them as I think they would have came to council then to get approval to
Counselor
award
Maybe,
the.
can I ask you to turn on your camera?
Oh, you want to see me?
Please and thank you. Sorry to
Sorry.
interrupt. Madam.
Sorry about that.
The public wants to see your face.
I doubt it, but thank you very much for that confidence. But yeah, no, I just thought that in this report, it maybe had listed the actual purchased type of vehicle and not just the one we're going to eliminate. Or
I can tell you what they are if you want, just pulling them up in citywide.
Sure.
That is the beauty of that system.
So we got 2 Ford F-150s and 1, so 2 2022 Ford F-150s. And I believe the other one was a 2022 Ford F-250, if I remember.
It's
correctly.
550. Is it a 550?
I don't know, we just bought one truck, like he just bought one recently, so I just,
It's a 3/4 ton.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think
so,
it's 250.
yeah. 2 half-ton and 1 3/4 ton.
Yeah.
Both, all Fords. Okay, thank you very much.
Easily asked, easily answered. Any further comments or questions? I see no hands up, so I will call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? And we're carried. Next item on the agenda is Corporate Services Report SR-042-23 Visitor Center Service Agreement with the Town of Gananoque, moved by Councillor Fody, seconded by Councillor Maybe. The Committee of the Whole recommends that council authorize the mayor and clerk to execute a 2-year extension of the memorandum of agreement with the Town of Gananoque for visitor services. Discussion on this motion. I think the delegation was aptly timed, and I know I personally appreciated all the detail. I see no hands up on the screen.
I think, sorry, through you, Madam Mayor, in the bylaw itself, it doesn't state the 3% increase, even though in the precursor it does, I thought I picked that up.
We can, that's a clerical, we can have that corrected for next week if need
Okay.
be.
Thank you.
Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? And we're carried. Okay. 6.6 Corporate Services Report SR 056 23 Amendment to Facility Use Policy. Moved by Councillor Lackey, seconded by Councillor Garrell, that the Committee of the Whole recommends that Council grant 3 readings and final passage to bylaw number 23-019 being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 23-015 to establish a facility use policy in the Township of Leeds in the Thousand Islands. Discussion on this motion. I see no hands up. All those in favor of the motion at hand? All those opposed? And it's carried. Next item is Corporate Services Report. Corporate Services Report SR 048 23 Amendment to the General Rates and Fees Bylaw. Moved by Councillor Lackey, seconded by Councillor Garrell, that the Committee of the Whole recommends that Council grant 3 readings and final passage to bylaw number 23-022 being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 23-002. Is that a typo? To final passage to bylaw number 23-022. Sorry, my apologies. Being a bylaw to amend bylaw 23-002, a general purpose bylaw to establish general rates and fees for various services provided by the municipality. Discussion on this motion. Go ahead, Councillor Foti.
Thank you, Your Worship. And through you, I have a question with the estimated annual cost. Why the $2,200 difference operating Kendricks Park Canteen and Washroom versus Centennial Park? Is it a staff number issue or?
Through your worship, I'm afraid I can't tell you that off the top of my head. I have to go back and look at the detail. But I mean, it could be like, so it's estimated annual cost. It could be based on the building maintenance costs that were required when I calculated these numbers. So that I took the estimated annual cost using the information I put together in the budget, which was looking at the BCAs and the annual capital over like 10 years, I think 8 or 10 years. So I can't tell you for sure. I don't even know off the top of my head, sorry, which canteen is older, but like if Centennial Park happened to be older, that would probably account for why it's a little bit higher in cost.
We can also get that from our Director of Operations because it would be in the facilities budget, would it not?
Yeah, I can pull it up in citywide. Like I can provide that detail if council wishes.
Before
I'm happy
next
to
week.
provide that.
Would you be okay with that, Councillor?
Yeah, I'd be fine with that. I was just curious. There's almost like a 20% disparity between 2 canteens, and to me, a hot dog's a hot dog. They both taste great.
So we'll get that detail. Oh, I have Councillor Jameson. Are you finished, Councillor Foti? Okay, go ahead, Councillor Jameson.
Just to say to Councillor Foti's point, Your Worship, the canteen in Centennial Park is not in the best of shape, and it's on the list of some assets we're going to have to take a hard look at over the next few years. But I think you've inspired me to just say, Councillor Foti, that when you look at what it is costing us to support facilities and the income derived from those facilities, I think that's the thing we are going to have to impress upon our constituents, that we people say, well, the community hall is already there, doesn't cost anything. Well, I think those days are over, and the asset management plan, we all know around the table that asset management plan tells us the story. But now I think part of our job is to make sure our residents understand that these things are really costing a lot of money, and are we focusing on them the way we should? And I'm hoping that the SIP exercise helps us as we go down the road on those things. So otherwise, it's a great report. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, follow up, Councillor Foti.
Thank you, Your Worship. To Councillor Jameson, to your point, as you would have seen, to really magnify your point, the Lansdowne Community Hall and Library building, the estimated annual cost is $182,000, 5-year average revenue of $8,700. Enough said.
That's a debate for another day, gentlemen. Thank you. Any further comments or questions? Oh, sorry, Councillor Maybe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. One of the things that kind of jumped out at me was the children at play, hidden entrance, intersection, and farm equipment. And I guess who is suggesting that these get put up, and that there is a fee attached to that, which is something fairly new. Is there a reason for a fee being put on a sign that is actually safety to our community?
Through your worship, I'm going to try and answer this, but honestly, it's the director of operations that requested this change be included. So I'm going to guess, but if, again, Dave will be in, I think, later this week, and we can get further information from him. I would suggest that, again, it's coming back to cost recovery. So if we have community members who are wanting signs put up for children at play, or whatever kind of signs they might be, that we're just trying to recoup some of the cost of the materials that we're purchasing to go put those signs up. So I think if we look at our general rates and fees bylaw, we really probably need to do an overhaul, because like, especially as you see these facility numbers, we're not necessarily recovering costs. So even to the extent we charge a fee for like our special event permit application, if we don't charge those fees, it's basically we're charging the whole taxpayer base to do this work, right? So that's where the fees are important. Otherwise, every other taxpayer in the municipality is paying for us to put that sign up.
The only point there is that we have signs up for speed limits and curves and slow down zones and all that. It still comes back to a liability part for me, in that not always is this sign going to be requested from a potential resident, as in it's a zone that has many of these situations. So
I think there are certain signs that we must put up by law, and there are other types of signs that we don't have to put up, but are helpful if they are up. So I'll confirm that. That's just my thinking, given the list of the signs,
Mhm.
farm equipment and that sort of
what's
thing.
our
So
what's our liability?
good question.
Yeah. So, and then I have one more question. There's another one that says mining fees, and that we do charge for mining pits and stuff, but we don't have any jurisdiction over a mining pit of any sorts. That's all Ministry of Resources that have that, and we have very little say, if any, on anything that happens in them.
Which schedule are you looking at that has the mining?
I
fee?
haven't got it open right here, but it under the mining.
I think it's a matter of us just identifying that it has a license to operate. We don't license it to operate. It's just to identify that it's operating within our municipality. It's kind of like having a dog tag. It's the same. It's like a wrecking yard license. That's it. You need to have that on because we need to know where they are. I think that's how it
The difference with a wrecking yard, though, we do have jurisdiction over it more than in mining, don't we not?
Oh, that would be MOE, I would think.
Well, that's
Go
what I'm
ahead.
getting to is, anyways.
Who's on first? I get it. So I have Counselor Garella and then Counselor Fody. Oh, you're good? Okay, Counselor Fody, go ahead.
I'm sorry, through your worship, I was just going to add to the conversation. I was told from the other side of the fence, those signs need to be up to inform the public that that is a registered site and falls under the jurisdiction thereof.
Really? Yeah. Well, we'll have to get clarity on that before the next meeting. So thank you for asking the question. Any other questions in
Yes.
regards? Oh, my apologies, Mr. Jameson. Thank you for speaking up.
It's my fault because I'm not there. I just want to go back to the sign process, and I think Councillor maybe raised quite rightly. I think at a point where a resident, and I know Gordon and I were wrestling with a couple of people over children at play signs, and it seems logical, but there has to be a process that the township drives in order to take a look at speeds, to take a look at volume of children on a road and so on. We're seeing in a back street, seeing in many more children now in back street, in Lyndhurst and so on. So that if they come to us and we say, sure, you can have a watch for children sign, but you're going to have to pay for it. What is the assessment process that we should be making for the safety issues? It's a health and safety issue from my point of view. So if the request comes in, should there not be a process in place that the township assesses whether that is a valid concern and whether we should proceed with it or not. Because anybody can give you $200 for a sign if it doesn't necessarily mean it's relevant. That's my concern about seeing that sitting there.
Well,
Thank you.
I believe that Director Holiday will be back for the council meeting, so perhaps we can have that pulled from the agenda on a separate rather than in the consent agenda so that we can just have these questions asked and answered before we make a final decision. Go ahead. Oh, okay. Nobody else has anything? Sorry, I missed your hand. I apologize. I'll do better. So I will call the question that's on the floor here. All those in favor? All those opposed? You can change your mind next week should you find out anything. Not that I'm certainly not trying to bully you, but that's why we have the sober second thought. It's actually a good reminder for those who are watching. There's a reason we have committee of the whole and our council on 2 different nights so that we can have this debate and discussion at committee. And then at council, should you have more information come to light, other people have opposition, what have you, that you have a sober second thought, you can come back to the council and open up discussion again and conceivably change your mind and change your vote. Correct. So good point to be made. So the next item is 6.8 Corporate Services Report SR-044-23 Cemetery Grant Policy. Moved by Councillor Garrell, seconded by Councillor Lackey, that the Committee of the Whole recommends that Council grant 3 readings and final passage to bylaw number 23-023, being a bylaw to establish a cemetery grant policy for the Township of Leeds and the Thousand Islands, and that the Committee of the Whole recommends that Council approve a one-time exception to the cemetery grant policy to change the application deadline of March 31st to a deadline to be April 30th for the 2023 year, and that the Committee of the Whole recommends that Council approve the allocation of $25,000 of the budget from the Community Grant Program to the Cemetery Grant Program for the 2023 budget year. Discussion on this motion. I have Councillor Garrell and then Councillor Fody. You want him to go first? Okay, go ahead, Councillor Fody. I'm calling it. You're going.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. A couple of questions. We're taking the $25,000 from the community grant program just for this calendar year. Is that right? And then next year's budget, we'll look at maybe how the cemetery budget was received or the money was received and then go from there.
That's correct.
Okay. And secondly, is there clarification that the cemeteries that receive any monies under this program would be separated from cemeteries receiving staff help for mowing and whippersnipping? Is that the case? No, they could be one and the same.
Through your worship, yes, they could be. There really is one cemetery that we're talking about here. And we're looking at what we can and can't do with that. But the idea is to cut township involvement of actually maintaining cemeteries that are operating as best we can.
Understanding, and through you, Your Worship, but I do understand that what's in front of us is just changing a date. Am I right in saying that? If I might, though, digress a little bit from that, and this gets into the actual policy. When I was reading that, it said, in order to be part of this, the cemetery must be registered with the Bereavement Authority of Ontario. When I went on their site and understanding who they are, I couldn't personally get a list of the hospital, of the cemeteries. However, when I went on to the heritage site and the, let me think here, it's the Ontario Genealogical Society cemetery transcripts. When you go on that site, you can dial up all of the cemeteries in which someone's buried. So what I was wondering is by putting that clause in there that are registered with the Bereavement Authority of Ontario, isn't that a little bit restrictive for what actually goes on in reality in this township? Because I saw, I'll bring up to mind the Grenadier Island Cemetery, which is, you could make an argument that that is an archaeological heritage situation out there. It is on an island. People do mow the grass out there. There are people buried there every year. Oh, every now and again. And yet I doubt very much that they are registered with the, are they registered?
believe
Because I
they
couldn't
have to
find
be.
the list. Could we get a list for the township?
You're not allowed to bury a body in the province of Ontario without it being a registered burial site. If you're burying
Yeah,
an
So
actual,
it's, so therefore it's either inactive or active.
correct.
Could we get a list? Is that possible, or is that too much? Am I asking too much there? Because I couldn't tune into that. I got on their website and it got complicated.
So just a couple of things. Yes, we do have a list. The
Oh, okay.
Heritage Committee in 2013 did a cemetery inventory,
Mm.
and they identified 42 sites within the township. They did not put in whether or not they are BAO registered,
Mm.
but at least we have something to work with. The suggestion that the cemeteries be BAO registered was made by Keith Sly, who was consulted in the development of the policy.
Mhm.
Dave Holliday, Director of Operations, had a meeting with Keith and took his feedback on what were the sort of things that we should have in the policy. And much of his feedback was incorporated. The BAO registration was one of them. I think it lends legitimacy that we're paying out money to a legitimate cemetery. And the BAO has certain requirements that operating cemeteries must meet, annual filing, bank statements, all that sort of stuff. So we're piggybacking on their requirements by making sure that the cemetery is an operating entity.
Rather
Or a-
than
or a-
making
a
a check out
legitimate-
to an individual.
No, that's fair enough. Would it be possible to get a list, or could you give me a link to where I can actually
send it
find
to you.
those? That'd be
I can
great.
send it, I can send you the list. So there's some interesting things. I was looking at it today. There's 42 identified sites. 20 sites are active. Now, this is going back to 2013.
Mhm.
So just keep that in mind. There's 22 inactive sites. There are 4 cemeteries that are owned and maintained by the township. One is active, Pine Hill, I believe, and 3 are inactive. There are 5 inactive cemeteries that are on private property that the township has obligation to maintain. So just some interesting things that came out of it. I'll send it to you. I'll send it to council. the
Thank
list.
you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Any further comment or question? Oh, sorry, Councillor Jameson.
Just to say, the 2 cemeteries that I have the most contact with up in my end of the pond are both part of the bereavement group, because they have to be. They're an association. They have funds and trust, and there's a whole bunch of things they have to do to remain legitimate. But having a list is a good idea. We are, and the Heritage Committee did bring a recommendation to council, which we approved, to develop a cemeteries policy. And I know that's on Marnie's very long list of things to get to, but having the cemeteries grant, the discussion that I was involved with earlier with Keith and other people, was really there is some disparity where the township is providing services at full cost, the township, as opposed to the others, which have been sort of left to their own, find the means to do it. And most of them seem that I'm in contact with, and I'll say 3 that are active, would prefer for the long stretch to sustain their own capacity, and the help that we give them, like the roads grant, helps them a little bit with some of the overheads, because it's a big cost. If the township ends up with it, it's because it's legally abandoned, so it can't be active, or it shouldn't be active, unless the township, in earlier times, municipalities would get into the business of doing this, but a lot of them got right out again because it's a very expensive thing to get into as a municipality. So this grant, I'm very glad to see we put it in, and maybe people need a little bit more time. But I, for one, am looking for a new that new policy from the planning department that really modernizes our look at this thing. Thank you.
Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? That's carried. Next item on the agenda, 6.9, Corporate Services Report, SR-033-23, Municipal Alcohol Policy. Moved by Councillor Lackey, seconded by Councillor Grell, that the committee of the whole recommends that council grant 3 readings and final passage to bylaw number 23-017, being a bylaw to establish a municipal alcohol policy with the township of Leeds and the Thousand Islands. Discussion on the motion. I think it's a well-written report and pretty straightforward. So we'll call the question on that. All those in favor? All those opposed? It's carried. Okay, we're at unfinished business, number 7. Any unfinished business? Go ahead, Councillor Maybe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. In reading one of the reports, it talked about the township finance software and integration. Just wondering how that's coming along or whether there's any more updates on that particular item.
Madam Treasurer.
Through your worship. So unfortunately, I don't really have an update. We did an RFP last year. None of the submissions were we were happy with. So unfortunately, there's very few suppliers in Ontario right now that have a market for our size of municipality. A lot of them have been bought up by one supplier who I really would hope to stay away from. So I'm hoping to go out for RFP again, possibly later this year. I'm also been talking to our corporate communications and community engagement supervisor about a possible grant opportunity in September. So I'm trying to line up for that and then look at maybe getting another RFP out, see if we can find anything.
Okay, any other unfinished business? Councillor Jameson.
The Director of Operations isn't here, but I just want to mention that I'm hearing again about the Sweets Corner School speed signs on Lyndhurst Road. And I was a much younger man when we were told that these were going to be up in short order. So I'm hoping we can move ahead with this soon. Yes, thank you.
Okay, so he will know what you're speaking of specifically. Okay, got it. I believe he will hopefully return to work tomorrow. Other unfinished business. Go ahead, Councillor Fody.
I would just like to say that I was pleased on our council update last week that we have finished some business, and that of our planning department have secured an experienced planner to join us in a couple of weeks' time. That's great news.
That is wonderful news. I don't know if there's been an official announcement, but nonetheless, can we do an official announcement? So we'll have an official announcement at council next week, probably. But I know that we're fortunate to have the staff that we do, but adding another great employee will help us along the way. As we well know, that is the money generator for the municipality, and also the protection of the individuals who are building and expanding and what have you. So, any other unfinished business? Seeing none. Oh, do you have some, sir? Other business? Other business. Go ahead, Councillor Groff.
Through you, your worship, I wonder, I saw an ad from the township on Facebook the other day, and it said to the extent the township was asking for qualified businesses to sign into the township register.
Business services.
Business services.
Yeah.
Does that sound right? And someone responded on my personal Facebook. They said, yeah, but there's a fee. You have to pay a fee to be part of that. Would that make any sense?
You have to register. I think
To
you pay.
register? Is there a fee to register?
I'm not certain, but I will check into that and I'll have an answer for
Yeah.
you
Thank
next
you.
week.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think it's probably more so to make sure that people are local and that we're not getting people from Abu Dhabi, coming in. Well, or somebody from another country that's, bidding on our tenders, which doesn't make sense. But I'm sure that Dave can speak to the system specifically. Go ahead.
Just to expand on that, if I may, through you, your worship, I've gone to staff on this issue as well with tenders, specifically one for doing the renovations here in this building, and that they have to pay to be a part of the process when they're not. They have to pay for the information to figure out if they themselves can do the work, the scope.
Right.
Which I really don't find is fair at all. You need to know what the job is in order to want
whether
to
you
be
can
a
do it.
part. You know, if they say it's going to take probably 6 to 8 weeks, but a company only has 4 weeks available. Well, he's not going to come forward. But to pay $150 to figure that out, that doesn't seem right to me.
Go ahead, Stan.
Sorry, I misunderstood. The business writers, the thing, if your question relates to participating in procurement, Councillor Lackey's right. We use a for-profit web portal for public procurements. Was it Bid and Go or one of those things? Bid and tenders. And so this is how they make money, is by charging fees to people that are wanting to be, they call them plan takers, I guess, to download our procurement documents. And as I said to Councillor Lackey when he raised this with me, there's nothing stopping a business calling the township and asking, you know, give me an idea of what it is. We're happy to answer that. But all potential bidders have to go through this site. This is how we ensure that all bidders are treated the same, that the communications through the site are the same to all the bidders once they take the plan. So all the questions that are submitted as part of a tender, we post our responses in the site, and the people who have paid to get the documents can go in and see the communications. If it's just a general discuss or a general question as to, hey, we see you've posted something up for drywalling. What are you talking about for drywalling? And you know, Dave or one of the operations people can kind of give them a broad strokes to see if it's interesting, or if they can do it. We don't want to waste anybody's time or money, but this is the system that we play in.
Okay. Councillor Fody, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through just to expand on that, CAO. So if company B submitted a question, all other companies that were looking at that same document would see the question and the response?
Yes.
Okay.
So the procurements will have open question periods, right? So you'll say you have until whatever, pick a date for bidders to submit questions. On that date, we take all the questions, we put them in a list, we put our responses to each question in the list, and we post it on the procurement portal, and all the bidders can see everybody's questions. You have to be careful. You don't identify particular bidders because you don't want them to know who all the bidders are. So you take out any kind of references like that. But this way you ensure that everybody gets the same information and the procurement is fair. You're not telling one bidder something and not saying something else, because that gives that bidder with the additional information a perceived advantage.
Councillor Grab.
If I may, then just to wrap that up in my mind, yes, there is a fee to join the program, but the program offers you a considerable amount of information. You have access to more than, through this portal, you gain access to information.
You'll gain the actual tender document or procurement document. If we put out any kind of amendments to the procurement document, they're posted so everybody sees them. And once they sign in, they're notified. If we posted an amendment to the procurement, we wanted something and it was supposed to be blue, but now we changed our mind, it has to be yellow. We'll post an amendment to the procurement. Everybody who's taken who signed up and taken the plan or the tender will get notified of that change. Or if we extend a closing date or what have you, it's the only way that we have that treats everybody with the same information at the same time.
So I'm sorry, just follow this up. So if I was a drywaller and the township has a list of trades that they're looking to get on their list, would I pay a fee? Would my company pay a fee? Or would it only be for a specific contract, a specific procurement contract, i.e. to come and do some drywalling here in this office, for instance?
I'm not familiar with that particular one. Every year we do that call for services and we
Yeah.
create a catalog of tradespeople that we can.
Yeah.
sort of pick
That's a
and choose
bit-
from.
It may have been ambiguous in the Facebook posting. It was my thought when I reread it, I went, I'm not sure if we're encouraging people to look at the current bids and tenders, or we were simply asking them to make themselves known. It was ambiguous to me, but the response I got was pretty sharp, and I was just wanting to clarify that.
Yeah, I'll check with Dave when he's back. I think that one goes through the bid and go like anything else, so that everybody gets the same information and everything, but we do it annually. And so if it does go through the bids and tenders type of web portal, yeah, there'll be a fee for it.
But it also means that once you're on the list, it means that we can use you at any given time for whatever those services are. So it's kind of like our approved professional list that we only deal with.
Follow up. Do you have to be on the list to
To do work for the
procure?
township.
Yes.
You do have to be.
Yeah, you have to be on the
Oh, okay.
list for those set services.
Yeah.
And it's quite a common way of doing it. I've
Yeah.
encountered this in my other life with the federal government. It saves time for almost commodity type services that you need from time to time without having to do go out for 3 quotes or follow, your procurement policy has been followed in that you followed a particular process to get quotes for trades. So, the drywaller will put his hourly rate. And so when it comes to, hey, we need a drywaller, we look at what firms have replied, what their hourly rates are, and generally we'll pick the lowest one, or we have a selection there. So if drywaller that's the cheapest doesn't have any availability, we have other options there.
So I've got Councillor Fody, then Councillor Maybe.
Thank you, Your Worship. There is misinformation out there and such. It only happens to myself 3 or 4 times a year where a tradesperson or a business will say, well, the township never reaches out to me. One instance I had most recently, well, I understand that they never called my brother to get him to do this work. My response is, are they registered with the township? And there's almost a blank look, like they had to. So is there any way we can get this information out to the business people that you need to do this process? To be considered?
I just, the last time we did this, I thought we did a posting, we did an email blast to the residents through the subscribers. We put something on our webpage saying, hey, it's time to get on our list. Certainly if we become aware of somebody, if they've missed it this year, they certainly can ask to be notified. We realize that, a lot of the trades are smaller and they're not on the public procurement sites looking for opportunities and that. So it's an easy thing to miss. Last year I was talking to a locksmith who said, how do I get onto this? I said, give me your card. And I gave it to Dave and I said, make sure you call him so that he knows that we're doing this. And so hopefully, if the process all works, this locksmith was advised and he'll be able to get on the list this year.
There's actually a discussion on council agenda next week in regards to awarding some tenders. So perhaps Dave could give us just a quick Coles Notes version during that time. Yeah. Okay. Councillor Maybe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. Again, this is a vendor of record that you're trying to get, and a vendor of record is somebody that's on the list that you call, which has proper WSIB, follows all the rules, has the insurance, and the competent staff to actually get the job done. And so that if you have 2 or 3, you can jump from one to the other depending on how many projects you are. Again, very accustomed to doing all this all every day. So it is that process that actually guarantees that the person's doing the job is going to follow the rules and it's safely done and gives us a better background or better job in the end.
Okay. Any other business? No other business. Number 9, notice of motion. Oh, sorry, I'll go back to other business and then,
Sorry, Madam Mayor. Got a couple things. Number one, I know I've talked about the website before and I was on it the other day trying to find something. And I know we've talked about this again before, and I do find it difficult to try to find something. Unless you know specifically what it is, where it is. And it's not an easy drop down system. And I don't know whether there's something in the works to be improving that. Be nice if there was. Thanks.
Madam Treasurer.
Through your worship. So it's on the list. We're working on it. We are, so our new corporate communications and community engagement supervisor, Tracy, right now, she's been working mainly on helping me with updating facility use policy, looking at recreation program. We have another, our next session starts April 1st. We're trying to, like I said in my one report, clean up the software we're using to get that working. So the website is definitely on the list. She knows needs work. And so hoping that we can kind of get through this phase of cleanup. And then I think the website might be next on her list.
Great. Thank you. And I do have a
Go
couple
ahead.
things. I realize that, the passing of our fellow counselor leaves a couple holes in some of our stuff, and I don't know whether there's a time frame to fill some of those, which would be the CRCA. Yeah.
Madam Clerk can speak to that.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. In terms of appointments, I believe in April we will be bringing all of those to council. I know there's a few to fill. And in terms of next steps, I'm not quite sure if it'll be the April committee of the whole meeting. It will be the April committee of the whole meeting where I bring forward a report, a comprehensive one, which outlines the 2 options that council has to fill the seat, as well as the methods if council were to choose the appointment decision to fill the seat as well.
Any other business? Seeing none, we'll go on to notices of motion. Are there any notices of motion? Got no notices of motion. I'll go forward with the mayor's update. International Women's Day is March the 8th. So in 2 days, we'll be celebrating the theme Embrace Equity. We can all play a part in helping build an equal world, and it starts right here within our community. Stay tuned for a video from our township women and staff to celebrate this day. March break is just around the corner. Visit the community events calendar on our website of upcoming events, including a science cafe and events in the farmhouse at Furnace Falls Farm. Our 2023 communication survey received over 400 responses, and I think that's a record for engagement. So thank you to all of the individuals on council, staff members, community members, all of those who pushed out the call for responses. And thank you for all that took the time to do that. It was very important. So we are calling all community organizations, the community grants program. Spring intake deadline is a month away. Applications are due on Friday, April the 7th. So that goes to all the counselors as well. If you know of any community groups that are looking for funding, please encourage them to put their applications in for the April 7th deadline. And also come dock your boat in Sealy's Bay Harbor. Our harbor slips can be purchased online or at the township office. We have a couple of minutes left. If there is anyone else, staff-wise, I didn't do this earlier. If anybody else wanted to say a few words about Gord or say anything specific, also the gallery is open. We have until 9 p.m. to end this meeting, but I just wanted to put that out there in case I missed anybody who needed to say something. Okay, no problem. I will put the motion to adjourn on the floor. It comes from Councillor Garrell and Councillor Lackey that the committee of the whole adjourn. And all those in favor, all those opposed, and we're carried. Thank you, everyone.